You mentioned that the initial idea for the new album didn't come specifically from Boston. So what was the starting point then for the record? Was there a starting point?
Yeah, the starting point was, when we finally decided we chose a month to get together and start working. I came down and seen these guys in Florida. Him and my guitar player Tony live down there, and they have a rehearsal space. And so me and Robbie flew down, and at first they sent me, 10, 11, 12 songs, whatever it was, 16 maybe, I don't know, it was a lot. And so then I was like, all right, in order for me to really dive in, I have to go down there and work this stuff out, because sometimes they'll present me with something and it's great, but when I start to think of melodies, sometimes they have to be rearranged a little bit, and it's a lot easier to do when everyone's together. So I went down there first, and that's how it all started. We started going through all their songs, figuring out.
But he brought a bunch of killer songs like What's Next with him, too, I gotta mention.
Yeah, but it was really, that's the foundation of it started with going through everything that these guys had, and we were just kind of sifting through the material and figuring out what was strong and what was weak, what we thought was going to make the record, what we thought wasn't doing as well. And then, from there, I started introducing them to some of the stuff I was working on, and we started going through that stuff and figured out what's going to make it and what's not. And then, eventually we compiled a list of songs together that we had, and I think we had 16 or 17 songs on the board that we felt were strong. And then we just started, winding that down to the best 10 or 11 songs.
But then by the time we got to Boston, and then we're actually jamming these once we'd arranged and got a good feeling for them in Florida, by the time we got to Boston, like Sully said earlier, then a couple songs just fell out our ass, like 1,000 Horsepower,
right.
Something Different, which both ended up being singles, So these magic things happen when we're in a room together also,
Well, with that in mind, would you say the songs that are on the album are the best songs that you wrote, or that they fitted best together?
We feel we picked the best ones out of the batch that we had to choose from. There was definitely some other songs that were strong, and some of them we even put to the side that we may, put out in between albums. As we're writing a new record, we may, put another one out when this record's done. But, we definitely all chose as a group, which ones we felt the strongest about, Because like Shannon said in the past, you can come and have an amazing instrumental record, right? But until the lyrics go down, until the melodies go down, you don't really have a song yet. So it doesn't matter how badass it sounds. It doesn't work until there's lyrics and melodies.
Right.
And that's really when you start to go, okay, now we can see which ones are lighting up and which ones aren't going to make it,
Like that's the shit that touches people, And that's why this band's been successful in the past, even before I was in the band. His lyrics touched people, at least in America. And, we get people come to us all the time saying that his lyrics have helped them, get through tough times in their life. And that's one of the best things to ever hear, from your fan base or whatever,
Was there a song for you then that are a couple of lyrics or a line that Sully brought to the table on this album that kind of impressed you, or that caught your attention particularly?
What lyrics, was there any lyrics that I brought to your attention that impressed you specifically?
Oh man, yeah, I mean, Serenity still makes me weep.
No, I said on the new record.
Oh, on the new one?
Yeah.
He actually helped me a lot with the lyrics on this album. He had a lot of stuff written down, and we went through that. As a matter of fact, a lot of songs that they wrote, he kind of already had melodies and lyrics in there, you know what I mean? But it's difficult for me sometimes to wrap my head around that. But if it's great, it's great. I'll extract it and I'll use it. But as a singer, sometimes lyrics and melodies are very personal.
Sure.
And to represent it and to put the emotion you want into it, it has to come from within, at least for me. But Shannon was a great help on this album because he had a lot of lyrics. And he would just kind of go, hey, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. And it either worked or it didn't work for me, but the ones that worked, we certainly went in and we started to put the idea of what this could be, what else this could be.
It was cool how we worked together this time. Like Sully would tell me, he'd sit there and explain what the idea of this song, what he wanted to get across. And he'd always have a couple killer lines and say, go to work, Pitbull, whatever. So I'd start trying to write lyrics and try and get into his headspace. Okay, he's trying to express this emotion, and I would have a couple lines to bounce off that he'd already given me. So it worked really well. It sounds like Something Different, especially, I think, is probably the best song on the record to me, it was a joint thing. But again, like he wrote FML, which was a song that Tony and I had come up with musically a while back. And that's like my favorite lyric on the record. And it reminds me of his first record that he wrote that, you know, it was really just, it's about relationships, but it's right here to me, you know.
And for you, Sully, you say you kind of need, as a singer, you need a certain connection to the lyrics. So can I assume that all these songs are from a personal perspective?
Yeah, 99% of the time in this band, songs for me come from a personal place. I very rarely write a song that I just make up. You know, there's been a couple along the way that, you know, was about a movie or something like that that inspired me, or a book. But more than 90% of the times, it's been just about personal relationships I've been involved in, whether they be good or bad. It could have been about, you know, it could have been about my girlfriend, it could be about my daughter, it could be about a friend of mine. It could be about someone fucking me over, it could be someone that I love, you know? So, but to me, it's whatever affects me emotionally is usually when I get the best stuff, you know?
And then, as you say, you would, especially at this time, you discuss the lyrics and you're trying to get in each other's headspace. So, if we take FML, do you know what the lyrics were about for him?
Well, it's obviously about relationship, and it became something else later. Like he gets these ideas, and then can emote them, and it's, you know, it's about singing. I think in the end, you know, how can I emote this lyric, and the lyrics will change, and he'll slash stuff out and put better singable stuff in, and you know, it just, to me, it's about relationships, and that can go awry at any moment, you know.
And then, Sully, for you, once you get these, once you write about these personal things, does that help you understand or deal with them in a way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the first 3 records that we did was a real cleansing process for me. And I'll tell you when that started. Before I even put Godsmack together, and I decided I was going to write music for myself, because up until that point, when I was 25, 26 years old, I had always been a drummer in the band, and I followed the leader and trusted that, you know, that's the direction we'll go in, and I just did the best I could on the drums.
What changed?
But what happened was, I think it was just one disappointment after the next. You know, we'd get into a band, it goes so far, you start to think this is the one, and then the band breaks up, or you get a deal and the record label drops you, or there's always something that, like, I wanted to take control of it, because I felt like at that point I knew enough about music, I knew enough about booking shows, I knew enough people to start getting gigs, and I'm like, I just want to be able to steer this thing myself and just see if we can get something going and stick with it this time. And so a friend of mine had passed away. He had committed suicide. He hung himself in the basement. And this was before I wrote anything. And I remember sitting in my girlfriend's bedroom. I was sitting on the floor and I was really upset. And I was writing on an acoustic guitar. And I ended up putting this song together called Another Day. And till this day, I've never released it. It's a very emotional song for me. But maybe one day I will. But that's what started it. And I'll tell you, my point to this is that when I wrote that song, and I mean, I was really upset, crying, and just like, because the lyrics started to come out, and I put myself in his shoes, and I was trying to think of like, wow, what kind of pain was he feeling to actually do it? Because you have to be experiencing some intense fucking pain that literally take your own life. And when I kind of immersed myself into him, and was writing these lyrics out about how alone he must have felt, how painful it must have been to be in that position. And then how I felt afterwards, it really lifted a lot of that bad feeling from me. And so I think it was right then and there where I identified how music could be therapeutic for me, you know, and I use it as therapy. And so from that point on, whenever I experienced some kind of emotion, whether it was great or whether it was really sad for me, is when I started writing. And that's when the first batch of Godsmack songs started happening. That's when I started writing Moon Baby and Now or Never and Time Bomb. It was either angry or it was sad or it was you know, a little depressed or whatever, frustrated. And a lot of the first Godsmack songs came from my experience in relationships. So.
What for you was it then, because after you say you wanted to take control and you have all these personal songs, when all the success came in, what does that do? Did it feel like a confirmation or vindication in a way? Does that see I did know my music? And
No, I just think we got really fucking lucky. Like Shannon said a long time ago, you know, it takes a little bit of talent and a lot of luck. And that's the truth, because we know musicians out there that are 10 times better than us, and they're still sitting in a barn somewhere or working in a store, you know, selling shoes or something, and they're brilliant musicians, and they're just never going to have that opportunity, because sometimes it's about timing and luck. And for me, you know, I had never even been a singer. I just went from drums to singing, and I couldn't even sing that well. I was terrible. But I just started practicing more. I started looking at other singers that I really admired, like Steven Tyler and James Hetfield and people like that, and great showmans. And I took a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I started to develop something, you know, of my own. But back then, you know, people were freaking out. They're like, what are you nuts? You're gonna sing? Like, you're a really good drummer. That's crazy. You never, you know, people didn't think I could do it. And I think that's what kind of drove me to want to really do it, you know, because I felt like, nah, I can do this, and I can do this better than the singers that we were auditioning. Because at first I was playing the drums, right? And it was Robbie and this other kid as guitar. And then we'd take the stuff, you know, record it on a little box, and I'd take it home and write lyrics. And after a while, we were auditioning people, and they were just all singing really high still. We had just come out of the 80s, you know, and I didn't want that for this band. I wanted something tougher, like a Metallica, you know, and so that's kind of how the whole thing started.
thank you so much for your time.
Sure.